Welcome to another episode of Auction Watch, where we take a deep dive of some interesting properties coming up for sale at auction. And this time, none of this Zoom nonsense. We're live in the flesh. I'm Ranjan Bhattacharya. I'm joined by Piotr Rusinek. Hi there.
Hey, Ranjan.
And Jay Howard.
Hello.
From Hammered.
Yes.
And of course, we'll be getting hammered later on, but that's a different story altogether. So in this episode, we're off to Richmond and also Lewisham. But first, if you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon so you know when we upload new content. Also smash that like button, helps us out with the YouTube algorithm. So Richmond first. Who found this?
This is mine. I mean, this is if you are selling a property or looking to sell a property and you're thinking about auctions, you want your property to be the ugliest property on the prettiest road.
This is it.
Et voila. I mean, this is hill rise. It's a nice kind of commercial, pedestrian kind of decent footfall, nice area.
It's but ugly.
It's absolutely disgusting for what it should be. So, I mean, here it is. This is brilliant.
So it's let.
It's all
Studio Kitsch Limited.
So it's let, 35 grand a year.
And based on that, the guide price is 380. Let's remember that. So we're not too far from a 10% yield. Not too far from a 10% yield.
Okay.
In that part of the world.
What is the angle? Because you can hope the guy exercises the break clause, which is, if you scroll down, I think it's 2024 something, but the lease runs out in 2029. So you can be in this until 2029 without being able to do anything.
Well, you could be, because depends what you buy it at. If you buy it somewhere around 400 and you're getting 35k per annum, it's not bad.
Park it in a SAS.
I'd swallow that. That would not be a loss for me.
Even up to 500, it's not too bad based on yield. I'm not sure the potential for that development.
But I mean, let's be honest, the ground floor doesn't look like it's seeing a great deal of action, and that's a recent image.
What sort of business is in there? Who is this company? I mean,
Studio Kitsch Limited. Sounds like some design company. I don't know.
I think they'd have a better design on the exterior.
Maybe they just started. Company.
Oh, we're having a nose at company's house.
Retail, sale via mail order houses of internet, hairdressing and other beauty treatment. Those are two different things.
Well, yeah, they're not exactly linked together. Okay, so here the angle is, and this makes an interesting point, I guess, which is that if you are looking at yield plays and commercial buy-to-let, my view is that when you buy a commercial property to let out, you should always aim to buy stuff that when the tenant vacates, you're actually in a better position.
Yes.
And the uplift here couldn't be easier. I mean, the upper parts are classed as ancillary. So it would just be resi conversion. And that resi conversion couldn't have been made any easier. It's literally starting this month. So if you have to hold it for a couple of years, or if they decide to vacate, or if you enter into an agreement with them, I mean, you're limited by your own imagination on situations like this. And I mean, the neighbouring, I mean, it looks like there's resi above onto the right-hand side there. But the other commercial elements here must be thinking, right, this is a lovely little high street. Surely someone can come in and make that not look like the ugly sister.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I think, plus you can really fill it here, and that window there is a concern.
It is a concern. I mean, you may be able to get another floor on the thing to check in many parts of London, and I'm speculating, I've got no idea whether this is true, but there's many parades in London where you see these rows of 3-4 houses, and then you see a few properties which are all one story. Yeah. And it's worth asking why that's one story. And what I'm fishing for here is looking in the search and seeing whether there's any underground rivers and stuff, or something underneath that might be.
I mean, we are close to the river. So this is a beautiful part of Richmond.
This is the property we're looking at. So it's
for that amount of money to own a chunk of Richmond is not too bad.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were to stick another floor, half floor on top of there, you know, you have river views almost. So, but it's an attractive high street. It looks, there's good footfall. There's an Odeon, there's a Nando's,
and that's the river.
There you go.
It actually looks pretty good. Nando's, yeah.
You sound so shocked. No, I like this one. We've got someone in our buyers club, Kimberly, who would love something like this.
That's it. Yeah.
There you go.
And she loves a bit of development.
So what do you think this is going to go for? I mean, do you think that guide price is a little bit optimistic?
No, not really. Actually,
I think we'll go 500 plus.
I would be, my minimum bid on this would be 450, but I'd easily get to 500 without too much coercion. I'd be happy at 5.
Because in London, of course, as a straight yield play, particularly with that length of lease, obviously you have to do some due diligence on the company and see how strong they are and all of that. But
ideally, you want them to be weak. You know, in that scenario, like the tenant is secondary.
But people will pay 6.5% yield for something like that easily any day of the week.
Yes, and I think it's very attractive.
From a figures point, this is a classic actually.
Yes.
The figures are very attractive.
Yes. Yeah.
Visually, it's but ugly.
But look, the old adage, where there's muck, there's money, and there's muck on the screen.
Yeah. And you want to be the kind of person who comes in and you buying the ugly thing in a nice road, right? Not the nice thing in a bad road, because that in another area wouldn't be as attractive.
I mean, Savills must be happy they got this on their books. This is the perfect auction property. There is literally no ceilings. Someone would, I'd imagine, someone who was keen enough would maybe even buy this on a 5% yield, knowing that when the time comes, they've got the resi conversion on the uppers, and they'll sit and hold it for, and you know, grandkids will inherit it or whatever. It's got that kind of motion in the ocean.
I've heard of that one before. Okay, tell us what you think about Richmond. Tell us what you think about this deal. Do you agree, disagree? Let us know in the comments below. And also smash that like button. So we're over to Lewisham next.
Deptford.
There's some creative.
It's like, it says Lewisham here, but then when we looked on EIG, it does say Deptford. And also, I tried to buy this property, believe it or not, in 2014. And I was that close with an investor of mine to underwrite this property at 425. We didn't do it, and it sold for 735, I believe.
Wow.
Well, it was this and all the car park there.
It was a little bit bigger then, wasn't
It was massively bigger. So
It's had a bit of a haircut recently.
this is the street history, and this is the one that I told you about in 2014. Sold for 735. It was guided at 400, but it came with the whole basically car park. There's only one picture in here. So what someone did there, basically, when they bought this, they went for planning permission. They bought this knowing even like that the planning basically got refused for this building several times. It went into appeal, was refused, but they bought it anyway.
That's
and
because
I thought,
it's a pub, isn't it? And community value and all of that.
and I thought they were crazy. But actually what they did is they ignored the pub. They just went for the car park. And they developed the whole car park into 6 or 7 flats. I don't remember exactly. But they did that. They made money on that one. I think they did an HMO above the pub.
Yeah.
And the pub remained as a pub since forever. And it still is a pub. Now it's being offered in the auction. And it's being offered as a leasehold pub. So I think it's only ground floor and first floor. So ground floor and lower ground floor with some outside garden. And it's got a sui generis class, basically. One of the ideas we had is someone could buy this and do a really good shisha lounge in there.
Like some Lebanese food, shisha lounge.
Where's the outside space? They built on the car park.
There is something there.
You just really need good ventilation.
That's it. Well, there must be some outside.
Seriously though, I mean, it's an interesting story because we can track what's happened to this property since 2014. And it just seems to be that someone's had some good fun with this.
That's right.
They've developed it, and now they're selling off the scraps. What is actually the potential of the scraps? Because they're even leasehold scraps.
That's it. Yeah, it's 999-year lease. I mean, the size of the property is massive. 2673. That's a lot of space. I think it needs to be someone who's got commercial use for this property, because I don't think this is a residential conversion.
No.
Look at that. When you look at the whole downstairs, the basement, there's no natural light. The floor to ceiling height isn't that massive. I mean, it's okay. I think it's about 2 meters by the looks of it, maybe slightly above that. But I think it needs to be someone who's got commercial use for this property. Let's see if there's any plans. These are the plans for it.
It's a big old bit of kit, and I mean,
there's only a little bit of a ground floor, and there's a lot of basement.
I mean, we say it's leasehold, but it's a virtual freehold. It's 999 years.
It's a fancy way of saying it's still a leasehold.
Yeah, but it's you have far greater control on the 900. The dictatorship of having an obtuse freeholder is diminished by being over 250 years.
Yeah.
But you have you don't have the ticking time bomb of the lease, but you may have the control that's exercised over how you can use it.
Yes, but I mean, I imagine the reason why they're retaining the freehold is because obviously there's the ground rent from the residential that they built into the car park. They probably haven't title split the freehold, and even if they have, they've still got the HMO on the uppers above, which they'll want to retain the control over.
Yeah.
So for on a commercial asset as it stands by itself, they could have been really cruel. They could have said a 250-year lease. But I think the 999, I don't think it's not the end of the world for me.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I see this
No.
as an opportunity. I can't get my head around it.
It already didn't sell once in the auction. It was offered a month ago.
Yeah, this is
and when unsold, it was available for 25.
Oh, really?
It's
that was just a month ago. Wow.
It's available again with a guide price of 425.
So it's kicking around.
Well, at least they've updated the pictures. Not all auctioneers do that. So they've taken the time to, put a different holding picture up there.
That's it.
I actually think that the owners are missing a trick. If they sold it as a freehold with the benefit of the ground rents on the rest,
Yes.
then it will sell to an owner-occupier business.
Or if they wanted to retain the control, they could sell the commercial element as freehold and then just grant themselves a head lease over the resi.
That's it. Yeah.
And you wouldn't have, then there would be no concern at all. The head lease will be responsible for collecting the ground rent and service charge, managing that residential element, and the freeholder is
and that's the kind of thing, like when people come to us to ask to help them sell something the auction, we would advise them on things like that, because this is a tiny thing. It's a tiny little thing, but it makes a massive difference.
Even on value, because if someone can go, I'm buying the freehold of a commercial, then it's a completely different stratosphere of value.
It's a psychological thing, and it's a value thing.
Once we were selling a property in Kent, and that was a development of 6 flats above a commercial property, and the owners wanted to retain the freehold for the commercial, which normally is a good way to go. But because we're selling just the leasehold, the 999 years for the development, usually if you do the development, you kind of want to have the freehold, because there's all sorts of things that might go wrong, and then so we actually advise them to offer the option to buy the freehold at a certain price for someone who wants it, and sometimes that's what allows things to go through, and to for people to actually get it and want to go for it. So with this one, I think you're absolutely right with the freehold.
I don't think anyone's going to buy it. I think it's going to go unsold.
We're of the same view, I think. Yeah.
So I think like a few out of the lots that we reviewed are like unlikely to sell. But
I mean, if there were a few barrels of beer in the left in the basement, it might add some value. But even that's been stripped out.
Yeah, but I think if you're looking at the Richmond property, which we reviewed before, all you do is like you take the boat to view this property if you want, and then you have a nice trip.
Again, it would be a nicer trip if it was packed full of alcohol on the.
That's it. Yeah. So maybe start with
no such luck, and then work back. Yeah.
What's next is a property in Luton. That's your pick, right?
It's actually a pick based on what I'd avoid actually buying as opposed to.
Okay. So auction don't watch.
It's auction don't do, I think. Well, it's in Luton. What it is someone's got permission here, probably under PD, to convert an office building into 6 very compact 1-bedroom flats. They look as though it looks to me that these were applied for before the minimum space standards. Yeah. So they're under the 37 square meters, which means they're very, very compact. I mean, they're all mortgageable, but they're very, very compact. Just as you can see, yeah. The issue here, I think, is that it's fairly common knowledge that Luton is a massively overdeveloped area for office to residential conversions. There's a glut of these apartments up there. So you have to ask the question, why hasn't the existing, we've got a video as well, why hasn't the existing person, the existing owner, actually implemented this planning permission? Mm-hmm.
And I think 2 years.
Sorry?
For 2 years. So there's only 1 year left of that.
That's a good point, because this planning permission was got 2 years
2019.
ago. And of course, you need to complete the works within 3 years. So therefore, whoever buys this has got to get their skates on pretty quickly. And Luton is one of these funny areas where it's down south in terms of costs of getting work done, but it's up north in terms of the end values. So, I think there's a good reason why. And I think with the auctions, you've always got to look to the story behind why it's in the sale. So why hasn't this guy executed and built out this scheme in 2 years?
Yeah, so I agree there are 2 things to it. Like there's you might want knowing why someone is selling might be helpful, but doesn't always tell the whole story. Because the most important thing, from my perspective, is what the plan, what your vision for the property is for that lot. Mm-hmm. And for someone, it might not be developing it. They might use it for their own storage, their own commercial use, their own something that basically means that whatever the reason for the seller for selling it is, it doesn't matter for them because it doesn't conflict with their own vision for that property. So there are 2 things to it, 2 parts to it.
The problem with that, though, is that if a commercial owner-occupier picks this property up, they're paying a slight premium because the PD for 6 flats is baked into the price. So they'd probably be better off buying a commercial without the permissions.
Well, I mean, taking that point on board, at least they're not buying hope value, because a lot of commercial properties that have been selling for the last 3 or 4 years have already baked in the potential for conversion to X, Y, and Z. At least this has the permissions for conversion X, Y, and Z. So if they decide that actually, I don't want to store my petroleum, oil, kerosene, whatever is in, that's got to be a fire risk. Whatever's in those bottles, I don't want to do that. I want to create some substandard living accommodation. Then they have that opportunity. But Costa del Luton, I mean, how do you say no? I mean, you could set it up as service accommodation for the airport staff and things like that. I mean, there are a myriad of different ways to play this. I would not personally buy it on the position of having it rented out as AST 12-month long-term lets. I also wouldn't title split and sell it off. There's no bloody point. But I would, that for me is the perfect kind of...
Well, let's look at the numbers for this one. Let's imagine we develop it. So you would develop it, you'd spend 6 flats, 40k a flat, bare minimum. Yeah. 250k to build it. Let's say let's go for 500k. That's 750 and then you end up with 6 1-bedroom flats. What could you rent a 1-bedroom flat in Luton for? 550, 600 pounds a month?
On a long-term let, yeah. But if you were to do service accommodation there, I think you could get more, you could multiply that. I wouldn't.
Yeah,
let me just caveat by saying I wouldn't.
I think it would be the kind of thing you say when we're trying to sell it.
Well, we're not selling this.
I think, yeah, exactly. But if we were trying to buy this, you would have to look at it from the perspective of long-term let, right?
No, the point that you made earlier was, what is your vision for the property? My vision for the property wouldn't be to buy it for long-term let, or nor title split. I don't think it would stack like that. But I do think airport staff or people who are just looking for short-term accommodation, it's close to Park Street. If you were going to do,
Is that a good thing in Luton?
No. But look, this is Ranjan's stay away from example, right? So following through with that is the only guise under which I would buy this property, and even then, I would be reluctant at anything close to what that guide price.
I can't imagine people going for a weekend in Luton and staying there and rolling up with their suitcases and stuff like that. It looks, I mean, unless you want depression. What I think is that I think this will go for. There are a lot of very experienced players in Luton that have vast portfolios. And if you've got and a lot of those guys actually, I mean, I know a couple of them. They run they run their own lettings operation, little letting shops. They'll have and the attraction of this is that you have got permission for 6 units, which you would never get today. So anyone buying this building today will not be able to make 6 units. Right. And you rightly say that you wouldn't title split. Because I think when you sell on, you need a small space than if you rent out.
Yes. Yeah.
So this would be a good rental yield play for an experienced Luton landlord, in my view.
Yeah, I think if you were to, that would be the route. But again, I don't think holiday lets would be right. But I do think short-term accommodation, so layovers and things like that. There's plenty of traffic going through Luton Airport, which is not a million miles away from this.
I'm not want to be in that business. I don't think there's much traffic in right now at any airport, and especially Luton.
Well, we did put this down as to stay away from. But at what price would this be? A no longer I will stay away from it to I will consider this seriously.
220.
Well, everything's worth
I
something.
think you're £5,000 less than me. Actually, I would have said 225. Which is literally I would be at 50% of that guide price. I think that would be a comfort level.
I don't think this one will exceed the guide price by that much.
Yeah.
I think it might go for a smidgen more than 400.
You think so?
I can't see it. This is not going to be one that people are going to fight.
I'm going to be ultra aggressive and say that this will be withdrawn through lack of interest.
Yeah,
really?
I agree.
I think so. I think there may be 5 or 6 people that will register to bid, but none of them will turn up to do it. They'll all wait for afterwards. Because anyone who sees that 450 is going to think, right, we'll just wait for it to go unsold and then make a realistic offer. That's what an experienced person in that realm would do, I think.
Well, you heard it on this channel first. This lot ain't going anywhere, so wait till after the sale and pick it up for a song. Well, tell us what you think. I mean, you might have spent all your life in Luton and love it. I mean, if that's your case, then let us know in the comments below. And don't go anywhere without liking this video and subscribing for more content.
I think there's some exciting lots, and I think now people coming back from holidays, there'll be a bit more competition for the properties, but still you need to know what you're doing with the actual lot.
Yes, absolutely. So we've got back in the room in person. What do you think about these auctioneers? Are they going to carry on Zoom, do you think? Do you think they'll be back in the room?
Well, so, I mean, in this last month, Butters John B, which is an auction house based up north, have already gone back into the room. I don't know how many people attended the room, but they went back to the room, but they carried on with the live stream, which is what we're used to. And I'm trying to think, Auction Estates, which is based in and around the kind of South Yorkshire kind of area. They went back into the room for their last auction. Don't know how many people attended that. But these are smaller auctioneers in terms of...
This is all up north. I've never heard of them. What about the main ones in London?
Well, actually, none of them actually have. Everyone's got their own opinions, but I honestly, I don't think all SOPs are going to go back to the room. Right?
They don't even have a live stream. They just have the
the The translation from in-room to online, it was seamless for them, and they haven't seen any real drop in service or results. And to save all that money on the Grand Connaught style rooms and everything else that they were running on the for their business, it just makes so much sense. Savills, I know we spoke to Andrew Brown in Stretton's. He's weighing up the pros and cons of going back into it. They're all kind of poised to do it. I mentioned in the Buyers Club that I thought if anyone was going to do it, and it's not London based, but if anyone was going to do it to trial it, would be Clive Empson, because their auction rooms are part of their existing commercial premises. Oh, right. So if anyone is going to do it for no additional cost, I think it would be them. But the other auctioneers, like the likes of Savills, Stretton's, Auction House London, because they have 100 plus lots, give or take, the time it takes them to bid through. So, Andrew Binstock from Auction House London, before COVID kicked and he was in his room, he would be doing from, midday till about 3-4 o'clock. Yes. Now with his online, he's doing from 9 o'clock till 5 o'clock. And if you were to go back into the room, how much bidding would be exacerbated or elongated for that? Would he have to go from a 1-day auction to a 2-day auction? Yes. Because I don't see Barnard Marcus going back into the room yet. I mean, they're doing 2 days. And is it financially viable to run a physical 2-day auction in London? I don't know. So
it's pity. I mean, it's a great networking opportunity. And of course, a lot of auction phraseology will have to change. I mean, bidding off the chandelier will have to become bidding off the mouse.
Or bidding off the pixel or something like that.
Something for the next book in the glossary section. Okay, I think that about rounds up this episode of Auction Watch. Make sure you don't go away without subscribing and hitting that bell icon so you're notified when we upload new videos. Smash that like button. Follow all our Instagram links, and all of that will be in the description below, so follow us there. And see you guys in the next episode. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
High streets across the land are changing forever. Basically, there's an oversupply of retail premises. Shops are closing down, more are going to close down in the future. The government know this, and that's why they're introducing a light touch planning system which allows small developers to easily repurpose these buildings to residential use under a light touch planning regime called permitted development. Now, this is going to be the biggest revolution and the biggest change and the biggest opportunity for property investors that I've ever seen. And this is all coming into effect on 1st of August. So you need to know what's happening and what properties to look for to take advantage of these opportunities so that you can get in there and take that first mover advantage. I've got a 90-minute free masterclass to get you ready for August the 1st. Make sure you join me, click the link below. Whether you're a beginner or expert, we'll get you started.